In anime, there's as many ways to be powerful as there is different characters. You could be haunted by a powerful ghost. You could be the last of an alien race of superhumans. You could have a demon that you're able to summon to your side at all times. You could be the Jinchuriki of the nine-tailed fox. But even though there is infinite ways to make a main character or side characters powerful, it feels as though anime definitely falls into a couple of key tropes more often than not. And not a single one of those tropes is more common than magical eyes. So whether it's Naruto, Full Metal Alchemist, Black Butler, or anything else, magical eyes pop up all across anime and manga. And whether those eyes allow you to control people, see through walls, cast illusions, or even now in Boruto, fire off tailed beast balls, every single time we as fans eat it right up. Why? Because magical eyes are cool as hell. See, because while we, as regular humans, can conceptualize being really strong or really fast, having an eye that allows you to see through walls or cast genjutsu is otherworldly, and therefore it's an incredible way for an anime or a manga to truly separate itself from reality. But just like with all anime tropes and things and people, if it's common enough, people are gonna start asking questions like, well, which is really the strongest? Is Ciel's demon contract eye stronger than the Byakugan? Are Rat's predictive abilities better than the Sharingan? And so much more. And thus today I want to talk about one of the most pervasive tropes in all of anime and manga, magical eyes. But more specifically, I want to talk about what are the strongest magical eyes in all of anime. Because today, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking the top 10 strongest eyes in anime, ranked and explained. But before we get to ranking or explaining anything, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And if you want to see me try and bring real-life challenges to the anime world, go ahead and follow my brand new page that I'm making with Stephen He, Chris Barnett, and Danny Mata called Anime IRL. Or if you just want to hear me talk about anime, go ahead and follow my anime podcast, Otaku's Anonymous, where me and Danny Mata break down everything that happened in anime and manga this week. It's available on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. So, eyes. Great for seeing, and that's about it. However, seeing is such a complicated anatomical process that we kind of can't expect more than just sight from our eyes. However, fortunately, in the anime world, we can expect a whole lot more than just sight from the eyes of our favorite characters. See, whether it's extrasensory perception, seeing through walls, or creating illusions, eyes can accomplish pretty much anything in anime. But that doesn't mean that all magical eyes are made the same. No, because whether or not you like it, just because an eye looks cool doesn't mean it's stronger than another eye that doesn't look as cool as that one. In fact, some of the least assuming and least aesthetically pleasing magical eyes we've ever seen are truly the most powerful. And thus today we're going to be taking looks and cool factor out of the equation and simply answering the question, what's the strongest magical eye in anime? So with no further ado, let's get into our number 10 pick, the all-seeing eyes of the gods. Wow, Nick, with a name like that, I can't imagine how there's 9 eyes more powerful than this set. Well, that's because the name of these eyes are actually a lot cooler than what these eyes accomplish. See, these eyes come from Blood Blockade Battlefront, which is one of the hardest anime names to say out there, especially if we're trying to say it quickly. And these eyes belong to the MC of Blood Blockade Battlefront, Triple B. Now, if you guys have never watched Blood Blockade Battlefront, please do. It's literally incredible. It's better Bungo Stray Dogs, at least in my opinion. It's a story about New York crossing with another dimension, which leads to aliens and humans cohabitating what used to be New York. It's got incredible animation and a super jazzy soundtrack. Now, our protagonist Leo gains the all-seeing eyes of the gods in exchange for his sister's eyesight. So, what do? Was it worth it? It's kind of hazy. See, wielders of the all-seeing eye of the gods are able to see the truth of the world, which kind of just boils down to giving them heightened senses, being able to track fast movements, or being able to pick up on minor details that would be impossible to pick up on with regular eyes. They're also able to see through world-altering illusions and perceive a unique individual's aura, which allows them to perceive in specific circumstances whether or not somebody is a vampire, or as Blood Blockade Battlefront refers to, a blood breed. On top of this, it also allows the user to see the true name of the person they're looking at. And since you need the true name of a blood breed in order to exercise them, this becomes important later on in the show. Now, I know basically everything I just described sounded like a lesser version of the Sharingan. However, the all-seeing eyes of the gods also allow you to, outside of the spectrum of the uses of the Sharingan, control the eyesight of others. They also allow you to see through the eyes of others, allowing the user of the all-seeing eye of the gods to go so far as to swap two people's eyesight, show what's on the mind of somebody whose eyesight they're swapping to the other person, or just generally create illusions. So, you know, kind of the Rinnegan. However, where it does separate itself from the Rinnegan is that the all-seeing eyes of the gods also allow you to swap eyesight with somebody else and see into their past, seeing past events that they've witnessed. However, there's a drawback to the usage of these eyes, and that's if you use them for too long, they overheat and crack, making their powers unusable until they heal themselves, which they naturally do. However, they can be used to the point where they can't be fixed, and at which point they will explode and kill the user. So, a real double-edged sword, which is probably why you get 2 of them. Unlike our number 9 spot, who only gets 1 magical eye. Oh wait, no, he gets 2 as well. I really only remember him having 1. Wait, no, he does only have 1. I have no idea what I'm talking about. Coming in at number 9, we have Sir Night-Eye. Sir Night-Eye's quirk is called Foresight, which allows him to see another person's future from a third-person perspective. And in order to activate this quirk, all Mirai or Sir Night-Eye has to do is touch somebody and make eye contact with them, at which point he'll be able to observe that person's future for a whole hour. And during this hour, Sir Night-Eye can see years into somebody's future, and every single future he's seen up until Deku came into his life was 100% accurate, meaning that Sir Night-Eye, simply by coming into contact with you and gazing into your windows to the soul, your eyes, could tell you effectively everything that was going to happen in your life. And even if he actively tries to change the events that he foresees in somebody's future, he can't avoid the future he's seen. 100% undeniable accuracy, with the only hiccup being if there's a quirk out there that's able to rewind time, like Ares Rewind's quirk. Which means the only real drawback to Sir Night-Eye's quirk is the fact that it can only be used once a day. But it's not a bad trade-off for being able to see an entire person's future simply by coming into contact with them and looking in their eyes. So while this quirk definitely has less abilities than the all-seeing eyes of the gods, I'd say overall it's probably more useful. But it's not even the most useful set of eyes in the My Hero Academia universe. No, because that prestigious honor goes to Aizawa's eyes with his quirk Erasure. And thus that's coming in at our number 8 spot. See, one of the tropes almost as common as magical eyes is the nope, you don't get that power anymore trope. Whether it's Asta's anti-magic, Dazai's thing, or Aizawa's Erasure, I've only seen the first 12 episodes of Bungo. Leave me alone. Being able to turn off the powers of everybody in your universe who's dependent on powers is massively important. Now, unfortunately, because of the war, Aizawa is nerfed a little bit, and then his Erasure technique doesn't really work on Shigaraki because he can grow hands. It's not a quirk, it's stupid.
Oh, this is just like growing your fingernails or hair. I'm just growing leagues and leagues of arms.
Yeah, those are completely different things. But still, in 99% of the fights that Aizawa gets involved with, being able to turn off the quirk of somebody else is a real game changer. But how exactly does this magical set of eyes and the world's most depressed teacher work? Well, basically, anybody who Aizawa looks at while his quirk is activated has their quirk turned off. And even if you're beyond what would be identified as the line of sight for Aizawa, the quirk still works. Meaning Aizawa doesn't even necessarily have to see you to activate his quirk. And simply having to see somebody as the prerequisite for being able to strip them of their powers is probably one of the most powerful instances of the "nuh-uh, your power's gone" trope in all of anime. As both Dazai and Asta have to come into contact with any magic they want to erase. However, the strength does come with a fair amount of drawbacks. As Erasure deactivates if Aizawa blinks, and the technique makes his eyes very dry. Most mutant-type quirks, like heteromorphs, aren't affected by Erasure because it's not really a quirk, it's just kind of their body. Usage of the quirk makes Aizawa's hair stand up so people can tell when he's using it. Technically, the quirk has no offensive ability whatsoever. I mean, sure, he's able to wipe out somebody else's quirk, but they can still, like, shoot him. And rather fittingly, because this is a magical eye list, the entirety of the power of this quirk lies in Aizawa's eyes. So if he loses one or both of them, no more quirk. But enough about that dark and dreary black-haired character. Let's talk about another one of those, actually. Because coming up in our 7th spot, we have Hiei and his Jagan, which directly translates in English to the evil eye. See, this is an eye that Hiei was not born with. In fact, it was actually implanted on him by a demon osteopath. Just crazy to me that demons have eye doctors. However, the surgery was almost definitely worth it because Hiei can do basically everything you'd want to do with a magical eye with his Jagan. Whether it's telepathy, telekinesis, mind control, and even erasing memories, if he wants to do it with a Jagan, he probably can. And that's just what he's able to accomplish in his human form. See, when Hiei activates his Jaganshi form, his skin turns green and he spouts Jagan all over his body, which massively increases the power of his Jagan because more is always better. But on top of this, it also increases his speed, speed and strength, allows him to use a binding curse that he can use to freeze enemies, and he's also able to, in this mode, summon multiple dragons to fight by his side. On top of this, the Jaw God is inherently tied, kind of like how Gojo's 6 eyes are tied to his infinity, to Hiei's usage of the Dragon of the Darkness Flame, a technique that allows Hiei to lure energy from the demon world and make it manifest in the world as a dark dragon flame sword that Hiei himself isn't necessarily able to control, but rather just direct. And anything consumed by this dark flame dragon blade is gone forever. It simply ceases to exist. It goes to oblivion. And the only people in the universe ever truly seen to be able to survive this attack were Sensui and Mukuro. And while Sensui kind of had to hide from the blade, Mukuro cuts it in half. I mean, she is one of the former leaders of hell. And since this is literally the oldest magical eye on this list, I have no hesitancy when I say that Hiei's Jagan probably informed a lot of the other eyes we see on this list. Like one we've already talked about while explaining Hiei's Jagan, Gojo's 6 eyes, which are coming in at our number 6 spot. Now, out of all of the eyes on this list, we probably know the least about the 6 eyes. And that's because inherently when you're breaking down Gojo's kit, the 6 eyes are kind of the least interesting part. Ties into the fact that the 6 eyes only truly become useful in the Gojo clan when somebody is born with both the 6 eyes and the Limitless, and you get a technique that's passed over a whole lot when talking about JJK power scaling. But let's go over what we do know about the 6 eyes and why they make Gojo so incredibly powerful. See, the 6 eyes, like the Limitless, are an innate technique inherited by the Gojo clan, and kind of like a supercomputer, they allow for Gojo's brain to use the Limitless, as while the 6 eyes can be used without the Limitless can't really be used without the 6 eyes. So think of the 6 eyes like a computer and the Limitless like a game you want to play. But how does that supercomputer make the Limitless game playable? Well, first and foremost, the 6 eyes allow the user to see the flow of cursed energy in great detail, which not only allows them to see other people's cursed energy, but also see their own, which gives the user ultra precise control over their cursed energy, which is incredibly necessary when trying to use the massively depletive Limitless technique. See, the reason that the Limitless can't really be used without the 6 eyes is because it simply uses too much cursed energy. But cursed energy isn't the only thing that 6 eyes users are able to see with high definition. See, 6 eyes users also just have better eyesight. They're able to see several kilometers away, even when their eyes are closed. In fact, Gojo's eyesight is so incredibly good that he needs to cover his eyes because when his eyes are uncovered, he takes in too much information to be comfortable. However, even when his eyes are closed, he can tell different people apart by reading their cursed energy. He can also see what kind of cursed energy they're trying to use and possibly what technique they're trying to fire off. But mostly, when it comes down to it, the 6 eyes key useful trait is the fact that it allows their user to control their own cursed energy with atomic level control, which is why Gojo is able to use the Limitless technique and reverse curse technique with an infinitesimally small amount of cursed energy. See, even if Gojo only had 1% the cursed energy of somebody like Yuta, assuming a perfect scenario, he'd still be able to fight longer than Yuta because every single thing that he does that requires cursed energy basically doesn't for him. And ever since he was able to figure out reverse curse technique in his battle against Toji, he's able to constantly heal the fatigue caused by using the 6 eyes on his brain. And since he's able to use the 6 eyes to make sure that the usage of that RCT costs no cursed energy, he's able to do this 24/7. And while a 6 eyes user will usually keep their eyes covered with a bandage or dark sunglasses, in order to use their most intensive techniques like Unlimited Void for Gojo, they'll have to uncover their eyes. So on account of the fact that the 6 eyes allow Gojo to be immortal against 99.9999999% of people, allowing him to constantly have the Limitless activated and to heal his body in perpetuity, yeah, the 6 eyes are going to get pretty high up on this list. But what's truly stronger? To be immortal or to be able to control anybody you see? I guess it depends on the person and their intelligence, which is why we have Lelouch and his Geass at number 5. Because I'll tell you right now, I'd probably trust Lelouch with his Geass more than I'd trust Gojo with the 6 eyes if I wanted to get something truly done. See, because while being able to choose what does and doesn't hit you sounds great, what if you can just make sure nobody ever tries to hit you ever again? In fact, what if you just made them hit themselves? Well, that's effectively what Lelouch is able to accomplish with his Geass, as the Geass gives Lelouch what's referred to as the power of absolute obedience, as Lelouch is able to, simply by making eye contact with somebody, to plant demands in their brain that they must follow. But you're probably thinking to yourself, oh, but he has to make eye contact with somebody. That can be avoided, right? Well, maybe in the beginning, because while sure, in the beginning of Lelouch's journey, he does have to make eye contact with an individual to place them under the hypnotic effect of the Geass, but with enough time, like any anime MC, Lelouch eventually starts to go off. I mean, simply by episode 21, Lelouch is already trying to use his Geass on something known as C's World, which is the collective unconscious of all of mankind, meaning Lelouch was trying to take over the entirety of the subconscious mind of every human on Earth. No eye contact needed. However, there is some drawbacks to the usage of the Geass. Maximum effective distance of the Geass control is 272 meters, so not that far. And while Lelouch is able to make eye contact with people through things like reflective mirrors or windows, he still has to make direct eye contact. On top of that, somebody placed under the power of the Geass can accomplish something that they're not able to do. If you ask them a question they don't know the answer to, they'll direct you towards somebody who might. If you ask them to explode their chest, I mean, they'll try and figure it out, but that's not how human bodies work. However, all of these drawbacks pale in comparison to the fact that Lelouch is able to give as many commands as he wants, and he only has to make the eye contact once. On top of that, anybody controlled by the Geass will forget whatever they did while under its control. So yeah, it's basically the master sword for manipulators. But its limitations in range and the fact that it does require direct eye contact to work keep it in the middle part of this list, especially when you consider the fact that an eye that's able to control people isn't a new idea. In fact, there's a couple of eyes on this list that are able to do it even better than a Geass. Like the Zanpakuto release Brujeria of Zumari, the 7th Espada. God, every time we dip back into Bleach, I just remember how many made-up words are in this IP. See, like I've already established, Zumari is one of the Espada, who were 10 Arrancar who served under Aizen and were the key protagonists of the Arrancar arc. Now, for those of you who don't remember, the Arrancar, or the Espada, don't have Bankai. They have Resurrección. And Zumari's Resurrección was referred to as Brujeria, which is a form that covers Zumari's entire body with 50 wide open eyes. But why would he need 50 eyes? Well, so he can use his Resurrección special ability with all 50 eyes, and that ability is called Amor. See, this ability allows for Amari to take over one object with every single one of his 50 eyes. Zumari describes this as stealing the sovereignty of whatever he sees. This allows for Zumari to take over control of whatever he sees, be it your arm, your leg, your hand, or your head. And when he takes over control of that object, a sun tattoo appears on it. Now, this doesn't only apply to limbs. He's also able to take over the control of things like rocks or trees. But usually he uses this ability to control somebody else's limbs to force them to either not fight back or harm themselves. However, if Zumari takes control of somebody's head, he's able to control their entire body, which means he can control up to 50 people simultaneously. Now, unfortunately for Zumari, he did come into combat against Byakuya, who was very willing to cut his own muscles and tendons to stop his controlled arms from working. But against somebody who's not one of the captains and one of the stronger captains of the 13 court guards, this ability is genuinely one of the scariest in anime. All Zumari has to do to defeat you is simply look at you. Not make eye contact with you, no. Just look at you with one of his 50 all over his body eyes. And like we said with Hiei, more is always better. But unfortunately, because in the only application we ever saw of this Resurrección was Zumari's death, we can't put it much higher than 4. But then again, if we're holding the idea that the person who used this eye is now dead, then number 3 spot's gonna be a bit contentious, because coming up at number 3, we got the Sharingan. Yeah, didn't think I was gonna do a strongest eyes in anime list without the Sharingan, did ya? Now, before we get into it, yes, this does include all iterations of the Sharingan. 1 Tomei, 2 Tomei, 3 Tomei, MS, EMS, all that. And if you thought Hiei's Jagan could do everything, well, much like Kishimoto did with a lot of Togashi's ideas, boy oh boy did he elaborate. You take the redness of the scarlet eyes, you take the abilities of the Jagan, and you put them all together. Yeah, you put them all together, and what do you got? The Sharingan. Because the Sharingan gives you extrasensory perception, the ability to see other people's auras, chakra, though not as well as the Byakugan, which didn't make the list. Can you believe it or not? It allows you to track extra fast movements, see through the truth of the world like God's all-seeing eyes, as it makes you harder to place under Genjutsu. It allows you to cast illusions on other people in the form of Genjutsu. It, like the 6 eyes, allows you to regulate your own chakra to use just the right amount for certain jutsus. And if you ever happen to be lucky enough to kill your best friend or simply just watch them die, you'll get the MS, which will awaken 2 unique, very powerful abilities in both of your eyes. Whether that be a fire that burns forever until extinguished, or the ability to portal things into a separate dimension, you'll get them. but it will make your eyes bleed and you'll slowly go blind. And that problem will only be exasperated if you use the third thing that comes with the MS, the Susanoo, which allows you to generate basically a chakra golem or a chakra mech that not only is considered the perfect defensive move in the Naruto universe, but also comes with weapons, be those a bow or a sword that stabs people and seals them into a giant sake bottle, which is known as the world of drunken dreams, where they live for eternity in a spinning nightmare. And if you happen to also have a family member who also has an MS and they die and you fuse their eyes with your eyes, then you get the EMS, which means you get all of those cool MS abilities, but forever. Oh, and now your Susanoo has wings. For dojutsu that wasn't said to be the strongest dojutsu in all of Naruto, that would be the Byakugan, it sure got strong quick, but not quite as strong as our number 2 spot, because not even the Sharingan is the strongest dojutsu in the Naruto universe. No, that honor belongs to the Rinnegan.
Oh, Nick, the Rinnegan is just an extension of the Sharingan.
Not really, actually, at all. The Rinnegan is a completely separate dojutsu from the Sharingan. And the only reason that we believe that Sharingan is connected to the Rinnegan in any capacity whatsoever is because filler at the end of Shippuden showed us that Hagoromo started with the Sharingan and evolved to the Rinnegan. That is not standard for anybody. The only time that's ever happened is Hagoromo and filler. If anything, the more accurate synopsis for Hagoromo would be that his Byakugan evolved into Rinnegan, which is actually incredibly standard for Otsutsuki members, as all Otsutsukis are born with a Byakugan that can evolve into other dojutsu.
But Nick, what about Madara evolving his Sharingan to a Rinnegan?
Not what happened. Madara didn't evolve his Sharingan to a Rinnegan. That's why he switches between the usage of Sharingan and Rinnegan when he gets brought back with Edo Tensei. What Madara does is he combines the chakra of Asura and Indra to get the Rinnegan because Hagoromo had the Rinnegan. Now, recent events in Boruto have made this point a bit weird because Hidari, the Shinju of Sasuke, is able to use Chidori while not having a Sharingan, which either means in some way the Sharingan and the Rinnegan are connected, or that the Rinnegan just offers extrasensory perception abilities that counteract the tunnel vision brought about through the usage of Chidori. Now, I tend to lean towards the latter because it just kind of makes sense. See, while we understand that the Rinnegan gives you access to the 6 paths, which are the Deva path, which is the ability to manipulate attractive and repulsive forces, the Asura path, which allows the user to augment their body with mechanized limbs, the human path, which allows for the summoning of the King of Hell and the reading of people's souls, the animal path, which allows the user to summon a wide variety of animals, the Predator path, which allows for the absorption of all ninjutsu, and the Naraka path, which actually allows for the summoning of the King of Hell. I'm sorry, I mixed the two up. The human path allows you to read somebody's soul and remove it if they lie. The King of Hell allows for you to heal your own body. But it's never necessarily been stated that the Rinnegan gives you extrasensory perception abilities. While we know it allows for you to see through the eyes of others, like the all-seeing eyes of the gods, and control the Ghetto statue, up until Hidari, who has 2 Rinnegan, used the Chidori, did we not realize that it also possibly increases your general senses? Whether that be field of view or reaction time, clearly some kind of boost is given to Rinnegan users that allows them to counteract tunnel vision created by the usage of Chidori. And we had hints at this being a possibility, as we've seen that the Sharingan allows for the user to see the flow of chakra, as well as invisible chakra-based barriers, kind of like the Sharingan. But Chapter 11 of 2 Blue Vortex is actually a good look into the exact abilities of the Rinnegan in terms of extrasensory perception. Pretty much the best we've ever gotten, actually.
But Nick, if the Sharingan and the Rinnegan are separate, how do you explain the Rinne Sharingan?
Well, the Rinne Sharingan is shrouded in about as much mystery as anything in the Naruto universe. See, pretty much all we know about the Rinne Sharingan is that they're tied to the Ten Tails in one way or another. Kaguya was able to awaken her Rinne Sharingan by eating 1 chakra fruit, something that we haven't seen replicated with anybody else. And outside of that, the only other entities we ever seen awaken a Rinne Sharingan were Madara in his 3 Rinnegan state, but he was just channeling the power of Kaguya, and Ten Tails. And it can be argued that Kaguya was only able to awaken a Rinne Sharingan because she was channeling the power of a Ten Tails. Now, obviously, with the power of the Rinne Sharingan, you're able to pull off things like Infinite Tsukiyomi, which is blasting a Genjutsu off the moon that places the entire world under a Genjutsu so you can control the God Tree and turn everybody into an army of white Zetsu, which is a world-ending move. It is therefore the strongest thing that any eye on this list can do up until this point. But that's basically the only ability of the Rinne Sharingan we know. We don't know if any of Kaguya's other abilities were tied to the Rinne Sharingan. Infinite Tsukiyomi is the only one we can nail down. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot about Oma no Manaka. That and Oma no Manaka. For a second, I was thinking that Oma no Manaka is an extension of Yamotsu Hirosaka, but it's not. It's a completely separate jutsu. Oma no Manaka is when Kaguya is able to take her and the people around her to a separate dimension. Yamotsu Hirosaka is simply her popping between dimensions. And the reason I'm so emphatic when I say that the Rinnegan and the Sharingan are very separate dojutsu is because one of the biggest reasons to want a Rinne Sharingan or a 6-Tome Rinnegan is that the acquirement of one of those allows you to use Sharingan and Rinnegan abilities from the same eye, without the need to switch between the two. And thus that, to me at least, seems to imply that they are very different dojutsu, that only truly become molded at the highest possible level that we've only ever seen from Madara, Kaguya, and Sasuke, because not even Hagoromo has a Rinne Sharingan. He has 3 Rinnegan, maybe, not entirely sure what's going on with the top eye, but no Rinne Sharingan. But unfortunately, even the Rinne Sharingan pales in comparison to our #1 magical eye on this list, because coming in at #1, we have Yahaba's Almighty. See, Yahaba is the strongest character in the Bleach universe, hands down. Aizen or Ichigo, nobody touches him. And a lot of Yahaba's strength is tied in to the Almighty. See, this is an ability that allows for Yahaba to split his irises and pupils into 3s. And upon the activation of this ability, the Almighty, Yahaba gets something known as omni-precognition, allowing him to see everything that will happen from the present to thousands of years in the future. He can know and will know anything that lays within his gaze. However, he doesn't just see one future. Yahaba sees every single possible future, and thus he can look at every single possible future in a fraction of a second and choose the best future for himself. Yes, because not only does he have the ability to see every single possible future, he has the ability to choose which one he wants. And that's not just by acting in the way he believes he needs to act for that future to happen. No, he has the ability to pluck a future from a bouquet of infinite futures and say, this one's happening. Meaning any future where Yahaba doesn't get exactly what he wants, he can nullify immediately, which is just being God or king. And if you haven't read the manga, don't worry about that one. And thus, when there's an eye that allows you to see not only everything that could ever possibly happen, but then also choose which one of those possible endings you want to happen, well then, yeah. You're gonna be hard-pressed to find an eye more powerful than that. But I'm curious to hear what you guys think. If you had to rank the strongest eyes in all of anime and manga, who would you have on your list? Tell me in the comments below. And while you guys are down there, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell.
Oh, Nick, you forgot to add Kurapika's scarlet eyes.
The scarlet eyes aren't what make Kurapika powerful. He just has a binding vow on himself. It's not really a binding vow. I forget what they call it in Hunter x Hunter. JJK has broken my brain. Anyways, he has a binding vow on himself that says he's a specialist whenever his eyes are red. That's not his eyes ability. It's a Nen restriction. How could I forget?